Does Nintendo need a more powerful console? A lot of people believe that the Nintendo Switch is a very underpowered console. Many of the biggest games like Black Myth Wukong, Call of Duty, and even the latest Assassin's Creed could never run on Switch because they're too demanding to run on the console. There's this sentiment that if Nintendo made a more powerful console, something similar to the PS5, they'd be far more successful. But there are reasons why Nintendo doesn't do this. Consider the NES and the Super NES. Both consoles were very powerful for their time. Then came the N64 and the GameCube, both very powerful consoles. The GameCube in many ways more powerful than the PlayStation 2 and the Dreamcast. And yet those two consoles lost Nintendo the market leadership and market share they used to have during the NES and Super NES days. Making a more powerful console would also increase the price of the machine. And Nintendo, unlike Sony, likes selling their consoles at a profit. Sony, on the other hand, likes selling their consoles at a loss. What do you think? Should Nintendo make a more powerful console like the PlayStation 5, even if it would cost more money? Would this be a console that you'd buy? How much would you pay for a powerful Nintendo console? Let me know in the comments below. Another thing to consider is that a more powerful console would also require more graphically complex games, which cost more money to make. This would increase the budget of games, like we saw going from the PS3 to the PS4, and now from the PS4 to the PS5. Games are getting more expensive to make with each generation. Increasing the power of a Nintendo console would be like making such a leap. Then there's product differentiation. You gotta consider that the Switch is a very interesting console because it is a handheld hybrid that can be docked onto a TV. That makes it a very unique console. The only console to do this, really. If Nintendo will make a console that is as powerful as the Xbox Series X or as the PlayStation 5, they would need to make a much bigger console, a much more stationary console. Consider the fact that the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X consume over 200 watts of power, while the Nintendo Switch taps out at 15. You can't really have a device that sucks so much power be powered by a battery. So, does Nintendo need it? If you remember, the Wii U was a powerful console. In 2012 when it launched, it was more powerful than the Xbox 360 and the PlayStation 3 by a slight margin. Yet, the Wii U was a disaster. Nobody bought it, except me. Yet, in 2017, they released the Switch, a console that's about the same power level really. Meanwhile, other consoles have moved on to much greater power levels with the PS4 and the Xbox One. But the reality is that the Switch went on to outsell the Xbox One and PS4. Think about Breath of the Wild. Breath of the Wild looks like a PS3 game, a pretty PS3 game, but it is not something as visually complex as Horizon Zero Dawn. Yet both games sold for the same price, $60. Nintendo has a track record for making games on the cheap compared to Xbox and PlayStation. So you can imagine that Nintendo is making more money off of a Breath of the Wild sale than Sony is making off of a Horizon Zero Dawn sale. I would love a more powerful Nintendo console. Hell, I dream of a Nintendo console with the power of an RTX 5090, a card that isn't even out yet. And we will one day have something like that, maybe 20 years from now. But as it is right now, the chances of Nintendo making a console that powerful, or even as powerful as the PS5, is just unrealistic. The Nintendo Switch 2 specs have been leaked, and it slots around PS4 levels of power. So while the Switch 2 will be impressive compared to the Switch 1, people that are expecting PS5 levels of performance are in for a disappointment. What I would love to see from Nintendo is for them to make a Nintendo Switch 2, or whatever they're calling it, and for them to make a Nintendo Switch 2 Lite like they did for the Nintendo Switch, a handheld only smaller machine, but to also make a Nintendo Switch 2 Pro, a more powerful version that would be docked only, like an Xbox or a PS5, and would be significantly more powerful from a graphics standpoint. Obviously, stuff like the CPU would have to be very similar because they're both essentially the same console in the end, but bump up the graphics like the PS4 and PS5 Pro and make games look better on a television set. That's my realistic dream. I don't know that they'll do it. They didn't do it last time with the Switch, but I hope they make it. How much would I pay for something like that? Honestly, me myself, personally, just to see the graphics and just to see something better, I would pay up to $550. And I know that's too expensive, but I'd pay up to that amount. But reasonably, it will probably have to be like $500. Considering the Switch 2 is rumored to be around $400, we're gonna have to see. Please like and subscribe, and thanks for watching. This is V4, signing out.